Have you ever wondered why happiness feels so elusive? Why does it seem to appear in fleeting moments only to slip through your fingers the moment you reach for it? Why every time you tell yourself, if I just get this one thing, I'll be happy, the satisfaction fades, leaving behind an unsettling emptiness? You're not alone. And what if I told you that the greatest philosophers throughout history quietly agreed on a dark truth about happiness? One they rarely spoke about publicly, but hinted at between the lines of their deepest works. In a world obsessed with positivity, wellness culture, and the relentless pursuit of happiness, few dare to ask whether happiness should even be the goal at all. Yet if you carefully read the words of Schopenhauer, the Stoics, and even ancient Eastern thinkers, a radically different message emerges. Chasing happiness is a trap, and the more you seek it, the further it recedes. Let's begin with an uncomfortable fact. The very idea of happiness is a modern obsession. Ancient humans weren't wandering around asking themselves if they were happy. They were asking if their lives had meaning. They were concerned with surviving, serving the tribe, honoring the gods, and fulfilling duties to family and society. The question of whether I am happy wasn't just irrelevant. It was incomprehensible. It wasn't until modern times, especially post-Enlightenment, that happiness became a personal, individualistic goal. And with it came an epidemic of anxiety, emptiness, and restless dissatisfaction. Consider Arthur Schopenhauer, a philosopher often labeled a pessimist, but in truth a brutal realist. He believed that life is inherently filled with suffering, driven by endless desire. Every time a desire is fulfilled, a new one arises. The brief pleasure of attainment is always followed by the discomfort of craving something else. Schopenhauer argued that happiness is not a sustained state, but a temporary illusion, a flickering moment between suffering and boredom. And if you build your life around the pursuit of happiness, you condemn yourself to an endless cycle of grasping and disappointment. Friedrich Nietzsche took this idea further. He believed the obsession with happiness was not just foolish, but cowardly. For Nietzsche, life's highest aim wasn't pleasure or comfort, but meaning forged in struggle, discomfort, and the confrontation of your darkest fears. He spoke of the concept of amor fati, or the love of one's fate, which meant embracing every event in life, even suffering and misfortune, as necessary parts of a large, meaningful whole. N suggested that those who seek only happiness are refusing the fullness of life. They fear discomfort, loss, and failure. And in doing so, they cut themselves off from the very experiences that give life its depth. But why do we chase happiness so obsessively despite knowing it's fleeting? Modern psychology offers a clue. The human brain is wired for survival, not sustained joy. Evolution favored those who remained vigilant, slightly dissatisfied, and alert to new opportunities and dangers. A perpetually content human would have been an easy target. This ancient programming still lingers within us. The dopamine reward system triggers excitement when pursuing something desirable, but that excitement fades once the object is obtained. This is known as the hedonic treadmill, where we quickly adapt to our circumstances and seek the next source of pleasure, endlessly running but never arriving. The Stoics, too, warned against this endless craving. Schopenhauer wrote that the wise man is not he who seeks happiness, but he who seeks tranquility and inner strength. Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor and philosopher, repeatedly reminded himself in his personal meditations that external events are beyond our control and that basing our contentment on them is a path to misery. True peace, the Stoics taught, comes not from pursuing pleasant emotions, but from developing resilience and virtue in the face of whatever life delivers. Even Eastern philosophies echo this sentiment. Buddhism teaches that suffering is rooted in desire, the craving for things to be other than they are. The path to liberation isn't through chasing positive experiences, but by letting go of attachments, accepting impermanence, and cultivating inner equanimity. The Tao Te warns against striving, suggesting that contentment is found not in control, but in surrendering to the natural flow of life. And yet, modern culture relentlessly sells us the lie that happiness is a constant state within our grasp. If only we could buy the right products, master the perfect routine, or manifest the perfect partner. The wellness industry thrives on our dissatisfaction, offering endless fixes for a hunger it secretly knows can't be cured. Social media amplifies this illusion, bombarding us with curated highlights of other people's lives, convincing us that we're the only ones failing to live in a constant state of bliss. The result is a population quietly suffocating under the weight of their own unmet expectations. People chase new jobs, new relationships, new possessions, hoping that the next thing will finally deliver happiness, only to find themselves restless again, haunted by a familiar emptiness. This isn't a personal failing. It's the inevitable result of a society that mistakes momentary pleasure for enduring fulfillment. But here's the twist, and the part most philosophers hint at, but rarely declare openly. The very act of chasing happiness makes you miserable. When you believe you're supposed to be happy, every moment of discomfort feels like a failure. Every period of sadness or boredom seems like a sign that something's wrong with you or your life. In truth, these states are natural, inevitable, and even necessary. Carl Jung once wrote, "No tree, it is said, can grow to heaven unless its roots reach down to hell." In other words, your capacity for joy is directly proportional to your capacity for sorrow. If you numb yourself to discomfort, you also dull your ability to experience meaning and depth. True contentment comes not from avoiding life's darkness, but from walking into it willingly, facing your fears, and making peace with the transient nature of all things. This doesn't mean you should embrace misery for its own sake. It means recognizing that discomfort is not a sign of failure, but a signal of life unfolding as it must. Every period of loss, loneliness, confusion, and dissatisfaction is part of a larger pattern, one you may only understand in hindsight. And it's within these difficult spaces that your character is shaped and your most meaningful insights arise. Meaning, not happiness, should be the compass you follow. Viktor Frankl, a Holocaust survivor and psychiatrist, observed that those who survived the concentration camps weren't the ones clinging to happiness, but those who found meaning in their suffering. Frankl wrote that those who have a why to live can bear with almost anything. The search for meaning transforms pain into purpose and suffering into strength. So what would it look like to stop chasing happiness and start pursuing meaning? It begins with reframing your discomfort. Instead of asking, "How can I feel better right now?" ask, "What is this discomfort teaching me? What deeper truth is it revealing?" Learn to see your difficult emotions not as enemies to be conquered, but as messengers carrying wisdom you might otherwise overlook. It also requires a willingness to question cultural narratives. Why do you believe you should be happy all the time? Who benefits from your dissatisfaction? The answer, more often than not, is industries and systems that profit from your perpetual craving. The moment you realize that your restlessness isn't a personal defect, but a byproduct of manipulated desires, you begin to reclaim your autonomy. And perhaps most importantly, it involves accepting the full spectrum of human experience. Life is not supposed to feel good all the time. It is a complex, unpredictable mixture of joy and sorrow, triumph and defeat, love and loss. When you stop resisting this reality, when you stop chasing an impossible state of perpetual happiness, you make room for something far more profound: peace, depth, and a sense of connection to something greater than yourself. You don't need to become a philosopher or renounce all pleasures, but you do need to understand that the pursuit of happiness as a constant state is a lie, a dangerous, exhausting, and unfulfilling lie. And by stepping off that treadmill, you free yourself to experience life on its own terms. Raw, unpredictable, painful, and beautiful all at once. To fully grasp the dark truth philosophers have quietly kept in their writings, you must come to terms with the fact that most of your suffering comes not from life itself, but from your resistance to its nature. When you expect perpetual happiness, You set yourself in opposition to reality. Reality is cyclical, unpredictable, and indifferent to your preferences. It brings both sweetness and bitterness, order and chaos, light and shadow. The wise do not waste their strength trying to control these forces. They learn to move with them. The Stoics understood this better than most. Epictetus famously said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." This wasn't a shallow platitude. It was a survival strategy. The external world will always be unstable. People will betray you. Plans will collapse. Desires will go unfulfilled. Pain will find you. If your happiness depends on avoiding these things, you will be a slave to fortune. But if you anchor yourself to something deeper, a sense of meaning, virtue, or inner strength, you become unshakable. In modern life, however, this wisdom is drowned out by noise. Every advertisement, every curated social media post, every self-help guru promises a shortcut to happiness. And so we chase, we upgrade, consume, compare, and scroll endlessly, hoping to stumble upon that one thing that will finally make us feel whole. It never does, because the more you seek happiness externally, the further you drift from yourself. Friedrich Nietzsche argued that to live fully is to embrace the totality of existence, not only its pleasures, but its agonies. His concept of the Übermensch, or Overman, was not a figure who transcended suffering, but one who could transmute it, who could take chaos and forge it into strength, who could endure the collapse of meaning and build his own. This is the work most people flee from because it demands that you confront everything you've been conditioned to avoid. Carl Jung warned that what you resist not only persists, but grows stronger. The shadows you refuse to face in yourself, the fears, insecurities, envy, and anger, will rule you from the dark. And chasing happiness is often a desperate attempt to drown out the voice of those shadows. But true growth comes when you turn toward them, listen, and integrate what they have to teach. One of the greatest lies you've been told is that happiness is the natural state of human beings. It isn't. Contentment is rare. Ecstasy is fleeting. Life, by its very structure, is made of contrast. You cannot know joy without sorrow, love without grief, or success without failure. The philosophers understood that seeking to cling to the highs while avoiding the lows only deepens your suffering. So what should you seek if not happiness? The answer is presence, awareness, meaning. The ability to be fully alive in whatever moment you inhabit without insisting it feels a certain way. To experience grief without labeling it as failure. To feel lost and remain curious. To wake up without purpose and trust that meaning will find you, not because you chased it, but because you made yourself available to it. Buddhist teachings refer to this as mindfulness, the art of seeing things as they are without judgment, not passively accepting injustice or cruelty, but ceasing the futile war against reality. From this stillness, a deeper form of contentment arises. Not the shallow dopamine-driven buzz modern culture sells, but a quiet resilience, a sense of belonging within the storm rather than waiting for it to pass. This is what Viktor Frankl discovered in the concentration camps, that between stimulus and response there is a space, and in that space lies our power to choose. Even when stripped of freedom, comfort, and safety, a human being can choose their attitude toward their circumstances, and in that choice, even amidst horror, meaning can be born. You will suffer. You will be betrayed. You will fail. People you love will leave you. Dreams will collapse. None of this makes you broken. It makes you human. And every great philosopher who truly looked at life without illusions arrived at the same conclusion. Happiness isn't the prize you win for doing life correctly. It's a byproduct. It arises briefly when you stop demanding that life feel good and start participating in it fully. So how do you begin? You start by noticing the lie. Catch yourself when you think I should be happy by now. Ask, who told me that? Who benefits from me believing it? Then, instead of reaching for the next distraction, sit with your discomfort. Let it speak. You'll find that beneath your craving for happiness lies a hunger for something deeper. Connection, authenticity, purpose. Stop asking yourself what will make you happy. Ask instead what makes you alive. What quickens your pulse even if it scares you? What have you avoided because it threatened your comfort? What are you willing to endure for the sake of becoming who you're meant to be? Because here's the truth. Those who chase happiness are easy to control. Those who seek meaning are impossible to break. There's a reason ancient philosophers often spoke in riddles or metaphors. The truths they carried were too dangerous to speak plainly, because to realize that you've spent your life chasing shadows is terrifying. It strips away the comforting illusions, but it also opens the door to freedom. Once you stop believing you need happiness to feel whole, you become untouchable. You can endure loss, failure, loneliness, and uncertainty and still feel deeply alive. And perhaps paradoxically, it's in those moments of surrender when you stop chasing and start witnessing life as it is that genuine joy arises. Not a brittle, manic happiness, but a grounded sense of belonging within the chaos. The kind of peace that doesn't demand the world be any different from what it is. So, I'll leave you with this. If you find yourself restless, disillusioned, or empty, good. It means you're awake. It means you've glimpsed the emptiness behind the endless chase. Now, ask yourself not what you want, but what you're willing to endure for something larger than yourself. What pain are you willing to carry for the sake of growth? What meaning would make even suffering worth it? Because the truth philosophers kept quiet wasn't that life is meaningless. It's that life is neither good nor bad, fair nor unfair, happy nor sad. It simply is. And within that is ness. You have the power to create meaning, to endure darkness, and to rise above the hollow promises of perpetual happiness. If this resonates with you, tell me in the comments. What are you willing to suffer for? What would make even the hardest moments worthwhile? Drop your thoughts. I'm reading every single one. And if this video made you think differently, if it cracked something open in you, subscribe to the channel, because this is where we confront the truths most people are too afraid to say out loud. No empty positivity, no sugarcoating, just the raw, ancient, dangerous wisdom you've been denied for too long. Your life isn't meant to feel good all the time. It's meant to be real, and that is more than enough.